Welcome back. We're happy to have you with us as we do our continue our reflections. We're continuing with the 22nd week. I know I've still promised you pickles. I got a whole batch ready to go. But Amy's not here, and me and Teresa, and I'm losing it. We got the parish festival going on, so it's wild here. So we'll see what we can do. But anyway, I'll have Teresa continue reading. Again, if you like these videos, hit the old like button and subscribe. You could click on the YouTube, go right to our YouTube link and subscribe. Remind you, the purpose for these videos was we started this during the pandemic just because we knew that we wouldn't be able to see you in church, in the parish, and we started this to help and assist with our faith formation, with our sacramental programs. And it has been a desire of mine since I've been a priest that everybody who comes to Mass, to the best of our abilities, has heard the reading, especially the Gospel reading, for the Sunday before they come, and has thought about it. So at the beginning of the week, when I'm beginning my thinking about the Gospel and about the readings for the weekend, we prepare these, and I write the bulletin article, and that's what these are for. We're glad that so many people are watching them, so if you do like them, pass them around. We're getting a lot more views for us anyway, but we are very grateful. So there you go. We'll continue doing these until people start throwing things or something like that. No, it's good. I enjoy them, so I really appreciate it. Teresa, go ahead and read from 22nd week in Ordinary Time from the Gospel according to Luke.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. On a Sabbath, Jesus went to dine at the home of one of the leading Pharisees, and the people there were observing him carefully. He told a parable to those who had been invited, noticing how they were choosing the places of honor at the table. When you are invited by someone to a wedding banquet, do not recline at table in the place of honor. A more distinguished guest than you may have been invited by him, and the host who invited both of you may approach you and say, "Give your place to this man," and then you would proceed with embarrassment to take the lowest place. Rather, when you are invited, go and take the lowest place, so that when the host comes to you, he may say, "My friend, move up to a higher position." Then you will enjoy the esteem of your companions at the table. For everyone who exalts himself will be humbled, but the one who humbles himself will be exalted. Then he said to the host who invited him, "When you hold a lunch or a dinner, do not invite your friends or your brothers, or your relatives or your wealthy neighbors, in case they may invite you back and you have repayment. Rather, when you hold a banquet, invite the poor, the crippled, the lame, the blind. Blessed indeed will you be because of their inability to repay you. For you will be repaid at the resurrection of the righteous." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ. A number of very similar themes over the last several weeks, even in my own thinking and prayer life with the daily readings as well, which are guiding us along that path of making sure that we're doing things that matter in heaven. Not only those things that will get me repaid on earth. Jesus is very clear about this. If you do things for attention, if you do things to gain power, if you do things to gain wealthy, and you receive those things, then your reward has been received. But if you do things for the intention in your heart of being pleasing to God, to achieve a heavenly victory, or to gain some heavenly prize, then those are the things that give us the true reward that we're after. Those are the things we ought to be seeking. And sometimes those things are very much invisible. Helping somebody that cannot help us in return, helping the poor, helping those most in need, is not something that we ought to be seeking any earthly recompense for. We need to do those things because it's right to do and because our Heavenly Father sees them. the invisible things, the invisible goods that we do, often receive no earthly repayment. And that's what Jesus is guiding us along here too. Even in a small way, we even only do things because it makes us feel good. And it doesn't seem to matter to what Jesus is saying here. So do this because it makes you feel good. Do this because help the poor, it'll make you feel good. We often sell is the best word I can think of. We often try and convince people you'll feel better about yourself. You'll feel good about yourself if you do this. And even that has its own earthly. So you feel good about yourself and you move on. And it doesn't mean that that's bad entirely. But it doesn't mean that that's the goal that we work for. It's good for ourselves to serve the least because it serves the greatest at the same time. In serving the least of our brothers and sisters, we do for Him. That's right from Matthew's Gospel with the final judgment parable. We do that because it's good for us, but it doesn't have anything necessarily to do with any good thing that it does me immediately, but it makes it builds me up and it keeps me on the path of holiness towards God Himself. You become related to God. You become more known as His own. You become His. You become a greater participation in the divine life. You gain a lot, even if you don't feel as though you have. And it's certainly to say that if you do something kind for somebody else and it's an invisible goodness, that if you feel good, it's not bad. That's not what I'm suggesting. But even then, we often will say, do it, you'll feel good. Not do it, it's right to do so. And we still make deals with ourselves even when things are invisible sometimes. And we want to make sure that our motivation is to further the work that we are called to in the participation in the life of God that we have gained and through with and in Jesus Christ. The first part of this is, Teresa, go ahead and start it one more time.
On the Sabbath, Jesus went to dine at the home of one of the leading Pharisees, and the people there were observing him carefully. He told a parable to those who had been invited, noticing how they were choosing the places of honor at the table.
Okay, so thank you very much. It might be helpful just to rehear those words again. But the idea is Luke's gospel especially is extremely practical. It's very practical. When you go in and you see all these people choosing places of honor, don't get into it with the other people choosing those places of honor. Rather, go to the lowest place and just assume it. Enjoy your time there, be there, so that the person who is hosting you can come and say, my friend, what are you doing way down here? I have a better place for you. Move up. Then you do not, it's very practical, you do not lose face, you do not lose any kind of, there's no honor involved or in the best or worst sense of the word. So you rather are just being so wise and practical that you can be moved up. And then the person who jostles and looks the best and assumes the place of honor presumptuously is then looked at and said, wait a second, what are you doing there? That place is not for you. Move down to the third spot or fourth spot or least spot, and then someone else is moved up and you lose face. You lose that, and you're embarrassed, you're humiliated, you've been moved, and maybe you're even angry, maybe you're even embittered, and all of those things. It also goes on to say, don't only invite those who can pay you back, which is what we talked about in the beginning. So again, Luke's gospel is very practical. We have this problem culturally, and we talk about it in the church because you hear it all the time, and you meet people like this, and it doesn't only deal with church things, but we have these things in the world called insufferable know-it-alls, sanctimonious people, holier than thou. We've met them before. We were in seminary with them. We know who they are. We have met them. They're family members. They read an article and they know everything. Maybe you could probably even be well, it could be a close family member or something like that. But that is a very ugly thing to have attached to us. It's hideous in the most in the best sense of that word. It's just really bad. So we remember when we're dealing with anything in our life to not presume we know everything. And that seems to be the most common in the parish circles here, that you just encounter people who are thinking that they know more, have more, and they become haughty. And that's what the warning here is about in this reading. It's a continuation on last week's about entitlement also, and it's a constant thing in our life culturally. There's no piece of information you can have that makes you better. But if you commit yourself to doing the will of God and to doing the will of God to the best of your ability and by the help of His grace, then you will come into all knowledge, because that's what the Spirit leads us to. And Jesus Himself says that. Fulton Sheen said that very, very similarly. He said, it could very well be, and I think this is exactly the way he put it, it could very well be that we have far too much of an insistence upon a knowledge of God and far too little on doing the will. And he never said, if you know my dogma, my doctrine, you will do the will of the Father. Never said that, but he did say, if you do the will of the Father, you will come into all knowledge. You will come into truth. And it is the person who is invested in doing the will that reaps the greatest reward, because of the will of God is to do heavenly work. So there you go. It's a little bit of a day here where it's rainy, and we're very grateful for the rain, and many parts of the world are not getting it. So we say thank you for that, but it's put me in kind of like this very calm mood. I say that as Teresa knows I wasn't calm like 10 minutes ago, but we'll take what we can get. So have a nice week, have a wonderful week. Again, if you like these videos, pass them along, and remember in your prayer life to understand how vitally important these lessons are. There is no more coarse or terrible trait for a person who bears the name of Christ than to become entitled. It's a complete anathema. It's something that can't exist. You cannot maintain a correct disposition before God and also be looking down at other people. It just doesn't work. And it leads us to distance between ourselves and others and ourselves and God, and it is truly an ugly, ugly quality. So in our prayer life, we always remember to say thank you to God who's given us His gifts. And that's the right word, gifts. We claim no rights in that way. We're being invited to a banquet, and when we're invited to a banquet, when we're not invited to a banquet rather, and we show up, it's a little presumptuous too. You end up thrown out, but we are invited. So when we're invited, we remember with what great gratitude we have for the invitation, for the offer of the gift. So remember that, and be really joyful in the good things that God has given you, understanding that they're a true gift, and they're done to remind us that we are loved. So there you go. Have a wonderful week, and enjoy the rain. And if you're here in Western New York, go out and play in it and do whatever, but thank God for it. So we're very grateful, and have a wonderful week.